Hi, Katrina here from ScrappyHorses. Welcome! Before we get started on part 2 of the Polkadoodles Lapbook Journal, Dogs and Pups, I want to be sure that you have the reference back to the video where we made the actual Lapbook Journal foundation. This video covers making the actual book without any of the ephemera or decorative papers. Secondly, I want to make sure that you know where to find the video for Polkadoodles Lapbook Journal Dogs and Pups Part 1. In this video, we cover the different Polkadoodles collections that I used in the book, as well as the ephemera. Also covers the first 5 pages. So, without any further ado, on to Polkadoodles Lapbook Journal Dogs and Pups Part 2. Just like we did in the Part 1, I start with a layout of the 4 pages. So I lay out the book completely and start with those first 4 pages. This is page 1 of our second side. What I've done here is I've come in with the piece of paper. I'm going to make a pocket on the front. I've marked the middle, and I'm just using a circle punch to create a half circle so that we can pull things out of that pocket more easily. I'm coming in and I'm coloring this up, inking it up with some chocolate ink. And I've already distressed the edges in the book. Again, I did all of that in part 1 video. So to keep this video a bit shorter, because the first video was very long, I'm not going to be distressing everything for you and inking it up, because once you've seen it 2 or 3 times, you really don't need to see it over and over again. Here I am adhering the pocket. Again, I did that several times on the first video also. So if you have any questions about that, I'm sure you can refer back. I'm using double-sided tape and fabric tack to put this pocket in. Again, I'm going to create 2 tuck spots with this pocket. The first tuck spot is going to be in the actual pocket. The second tuck spot is going to be using the ribbon, and you'll see how I do that here in just a moment. I'm using double-sided tape to adhere that on the back side. Now this is just a piece where I've done some sample stitching. I was checking my bobbin pressure, and so I have threads that hang off the end of it. What I'm doing is I'm just creating a little nest here, and I'm going to lay that on, and it just kind of creates an element with some fibers there, just a little decorative piece. And that is going to get glued in behind this little arrow, which will create a bit of a sentiment on this page. Now, if you watched the first video, you saw that this is a dog book, and it's sort of documenting all the parts of a puppy or a dog's life. And so we have this little piece that said, I did it. And this little piece here that's going to go on the top of the page says, sit. So every dog owner knows that when your dog learns to sit, this is such a fun thing. It's one of the first things we teach our dogs. And when they actually do it, it's so exciting. So here I've used a little piece of cereal box to give it a little dimension, and we just glue that on the page. Now this next one is going to have a banner at the top. I went ahead and I taped those banner pieces together with some double-sided tape, and then decided I wanted to add some faux stitching. Faux just meaning fake stitching, and I just put that in with a brown gel pen. Now I'm going to place that on with that double-sided tape, froof it up a little bit, and use some double-sided tape as well as fabric tack to adhere this little scrap of ribbon over the top of that. The next little embellishment you're going to see was made with candle wax and a paw print stamp. If you've never done candle wax stamping before, it's a lot of fun. I didn't include it in this video, but I can make a video later on that if you're interested. The next page is going to have a magnetic closure envelope. So again, this envelope is from Little Miss Sugar Pops. from Polkadoodles. And I cut this on my Cricut. And now I'm just simply going over the fold lines. Now the fold lines were put in with my Cricut, but I'm just putting them in a little bit heavier so I can get some really nice crisp folds. So I lay it on the scoreboard. I just go over those folds and then I fold them over and burnish them in with the bone folder. Next, all I'm going to do is close up the envelope, and you'll see that I didn't quite meet the edge there. Not a problem. I just slip my bone folder in and I can just sort of stretch that out a little bit and it meets perfectly. I'll come in now with some fabric tack and just glue those sides in place. Next, I'm going to come in with some ink and just ink up the edges just to give it a finished appearance. I like using envelopes inside my lap books. It gives me a secure place to put things that I don't want to lose or things that maybe I want to keep a little bit private. Here I'm bringing in some cranberry colored embroidery floss to go through my buttonholes. This button is going to be adhered over the top of the magnetic enclosure. So it's a decorative element to hide that magnet piece. So here I'm just tying some knots and cutting it off and just lay it there and you'll see where it's going to lay on the envelope. So I'm bringing in the magnet and the washer. The most important thing you want to remember here is that you make sure that before you glue them in that you have the magnetic sides actually coming together. So on the top of the envelope piece, I am putting the washer. I think probably I would have, if I were to do this over again, I would put the magnet on the top and the washer underneath because the washer is thinner. Live and learn, right? So anyway, now I've got my back magnet on the back and you can see that this kind of has a little click to it. You can't hear it because I've taken that out. I'm going to cover that back magnet piece with some washi tape. The reason I am doing that is to give it a very smooth back side because again I want two tuck spots here. I want a tuck spot behind the envelope as well as inside the envelope. Putting that washi tape will help me to slide things in and out. I'm coming in with some E6000 because I want to glue plastic to metal, and that E6000 just really adheres that kind of material together well. Here I'm using my double-sided tape to put on my back side of my envelope, again just around the edges so that I have that second tuck spot. I'll come in now with some fabric tack, go around the edges over my double-sided tape. Again, in case you've forgotten or you're just curious why I use both, I like the slide that the glue gives me over the tape. The tape will give me a quick grab once I press it down, but the glue gives me a little slide room to get that in there exactly where I want it. You'll notice on this page that I've done some machine stitching. I used a zigzag stitch and made it wider and more narrow. Here I'm just demonstrating the two different tuck spots that I have created on the page. Two tuck spots. I want to reiterate from the first video that I did on this lap book. I am very accustomed to working with single edge razor blades. I'm an oboe player and I make oboe reeds, so I work with them quite a bit. Please be sure that you're working with tools that you are accustomed to and that you enjoy working with. I do not advocate working with single edge razor blades. It's just what I work with all the time, so I'm used to it. So safety first, be careful. I have to put that in there because I don't want anybody getting hurt. I've just adhered a chocolate bow with some pink stitching around the edge, just for a little decorative element. On to the next page. A burlap ribbon over some green gingham paper. I love that look. Very fun, very country. And our sentiment here is going to be stay. Again, another command we love to give our pups. I'm adhering some little metal pieces here, and I'm using the E6000. I just lay a ruler next to it and get a rough estimate so that I sort of get those spaced out evenly. They're probably not exact, but close enough for the eye. On the next page, I've brought in one of the little pieces of ephemera that I have Copic colored, and I've added some embossing ink and poured over some embossing powder. Now I'm going to come in and clean away where I don't want the powder to stick, which is around those holes. I've added embossing powder just to give it a little bit of shine and a little bit of texture. So now I bring in my heat gun and we're going to heat this up, and you'll start to see that texture and shine. There's something so fun about embossing powders. I don't know what it is, but I just love watching it heat up and do its magic. Here I've used a couple of different papers. I've created a tuck spot behind that bone paper, and there'll be a tuck spot behind this twine that I wrapped around the back and then into the front, created an X, and now I'm using this button or this bone ephemera as sort of a button on the front. We're on to the back cover now, and I've brought back the Woof You stamp set that we used in part 1, and I'm using the Woof You sentiment. I have it on my Misty, and I have some dark cocoa ink. I actually did ink this sentiment twice on the back. You'll see here when I lift it that magically you'll see it appear behind there because I went ahead and stamped it. And then I'm stamping it again. That's the nice thing about using a Misty. If you want something darker, you can definitely go over it a second time. Next, I'm bringing in some little paw prints, and I'm just going up the side, off the paper, and back onto the paper again. We're moving on to the front cover now, and I'm bringing in a Prima flower that I have taken apart, and I'm stamping those little paw prints around the edge just so it looks like it really ties in with our book. I'm inking with some teal colored ink around the edges, again, to bring in our color scheme. Fabric tack, gluing it all back together again. Easy enough to do. This will make our flower look like it was made especially for this book. Now I'm coming in with the title. The Memories is part of the ephemera. All I did was cut it in a strip and then use a corner rounder on the edges. I went over the memories and wrote over the top with a blue gel pen. I'm marking this ribbon from the back of the book, and I'm going to double-side tape that onto the back. Now, I could have done that under the back cover, but I decided I wanted the ribbon to go over the back since I left the back somewhat plain. On the front, however, my ribbon is going to go under the paper panel. So I've cut my paper panel. I'm going to put in a piece of ribbon, which has a little decorative edge. Here I've put my ribbon and taped it down with a piece of double-sided tape. I've put my little border on, and I've used some washi tape over the edge to sort of cover that seam. On the cover, I'm using a nice wide double-sided tape. I'll go over that double-sided tape with fabric tack, and I will smoosh a lot of that fabric tack on there. And it's time to glue that down now. I'm going to make sure that I get that on nice and tight. I'm going to pull my ribbon a little bit tight so that it's nice and flat under there. Now I bring my flower back and my little title banner. I've decided that I want the memories to stand up. So I'm using some of those leftover cereal pieces and I'm building up a nice platform for that memory so that it can stand over some of those flower petals. I'm going to put that in place now with some double-sided tape and fabric tack again. And I'm glad I used the fabric tack on this, especially because I ended up twisting that flower around a little bit. So now I'm going to glue my title in place along with the little banner pieces. Again, using double-sided tape and fabric tack. You'll notice that I'm leaving those edges free so I can sort of froof those up a little bit. Now I'm coming in with a Tim Holtz metal label, and you'll be able to see what that says in the close-up here in a little bit. I'm putting that in again with double-sided tape and some fabric tack. I'm adhering a lot of fabric tack on those edges because I want to be sure that this label stays on this book. Now, as I'm looking at this book, it's still just a little plain for me. And I looked at it for quite a while trying to decide what do I want to do with this cover, because I wanted something else on it, but I didn't want a lot. So I decided to come in with some medium-sized gems and just sort of strategically place them around inside some of these circles. And then I decided it still wasn't enough for me. As some of you know me, I sort of jump the shark sometimes and go a little bit overboard, but I just couldn't stop. So then I came in with some smaller size gems and filled out some of the spaces in between. And then I was happy with it. So sometimes just a few gems, adding a little bit of sparkle will do the trick. So I'm tying this little bow now. Not that I needed to at this point, but I decided I wanted to see what it was going to look like. All right, this is oboe thread, oboe reed thread. It's very, very strong. It's a double F. I pulled a couple of colors because I wasn't sure which color I wanted to use. I'm sure that you could also use, since probably the majority of you don't play oboe and don't just have this sitting around your house, you could probably use carpet thread or some other really strong thread. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and wrap this around my first spine 3 times. The reason I'm doing this is to create a system for pages. I'm going to put in 3 page systems. I will include 1 page system with this lap book. However, there will be 2 more spots so that the person who purchases the book can use it to slip papers into, or they could make their own page systems if they wanted to. And you'll see how that works with the flip through, which I'll talk about right now. There'll be 1 more video in this particular collection of videos, and that will be the flip through, and I will show you how the pages work and give you a little tour of the ephemera that I used. What I'm doing here is I'm tying a knot near the top of the spine, and I am so sorry I did not get this framed well for you at all. My apologies. I was so intent on getting that knot nice and tight that I did not check to see where I was. So here's a picture of the inside of the journal. You can see the 3 threads. And then here's a picture of the outside where I tied the knot. Here, I am just simply tying some charms onto those threads that I left dangling off of that knot that I tied. This is purely decorative. You could tie any sort of thing on there that you like. I just found these really cute dog charms, and I'll list what those are. I thought that little loopy one sort of looked like a dog collar. And then I found the paw charms that you can see there. And then I also found some other dangly charms. One of them, it says, "I love my dog." And another one I believe is a dog house. And you'll see some close-ups of those in the flip through video that I will put in the information box below. There's that little dog house. So thank you so much for joining me today. And thanks especially for hanging with me through 3 videos to get this project done. I hope you picked up some ideas along the way and you were inspired to try one of these lapbook journals. Have a great day, and I'll see you in my next video or over on my blog. Bye.